Welcome to the New to Wrestling podcast, where I, your host, Xavier Cruz, a lifelong wrestling fan, will take a lifelong friend through the action, the joys, and the drama of the world of professional wrestling. My co-host, Kelsey Silva, has been bitten by the wrestling bug, and I want to invite you to join us as I take her through the moments that made me a fan. So if you're new to wrestling and would like to get brought up to speed, or a fan who would like to relive some classic matches, promos, and segments through fresh eyes, join us as we embark on a journey through the Attitude Era and beyond. Welcome to the New to Wrestling podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the New to Wrestling podcast. This week, we watched the October 21st, 1996 edition of Monday Night Raw, and the match card is as follows. We had Sycho Sid, who is the number one contender for the WWF Championship, versus one half of the tag team champions, Owen Hart, with Clarence Mason. We had the Smoking Guns versus the Godwins, and in our main event, we had Triple H versus Mr. Perfect, which ended up being Triple H versus Mark Miro. We will get to that. All right, let's get into it.
We will get to that.
So first, I wanted to just say welcome back, everybody. I'd like to just kind of start off by apologizing for kind of falling off the face of the earth for the last couple of weeks. Sometimes life just throws you some hands and you kind of have to reprioritize.
Yeah, please believe us, it was completely out of our control, and
yeah,
there was like literally no possible way. Like
the hits just kept coming.
Yeah.
We are on the mend, and we're going to be recording an extra episode this week so that we can kind of get ahead of the game. But we appreciate you all staying with us and being patient. Sometimes you just got to reprioritize your family, your friends, and then, you know, the fun stuff. But now we're back and we're ready to pick up where we left off. In our previous episode, we watched the Buried Alive pay-per-view, which left us with a lot of cliffhangers, which hopefully we will kind of start to sort through on this episode. All right. So the episode opens with a kind of a montage of Bret Hart's departure after WrestleMania. So essentially, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart had a 60-minute Iron Man match at WrestleMania the previous year. After that match, Bret Hart lost, and he essentially took his ball and went home. And we have not really seen Bret Hart much since. So for the past 6 months, Shawn Michaels has been kind of the champion, been the face of the company, and has been doing a killer job, like absolutely phenomenal. So
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So WrestleMania last year, was that at the Garden?
I don't remember.
Because I'm just wondering if, sorry, that's like a hard question, but I'm wondering like, because if it was at the Garden, that would be insane that his like return to wrestling is also going to be at the Garden. That's what I was wondering.
Hold on, pause. Let's find out. WrestleMania 12. No, it took place in California.
Oh, okay, so never mind. Just ignore my question.
No worries. Okay, so Bret Hart will be making his return on this episode. So they just kind of left us with a little bit of like a recap as far as when was the last time we saw Bret, and kind of all of the things leading up to his departure. So we get into our first match, which was Sycho Sid versus Owen Hart. So basically, Sycho Sid won the number one contendership the previous night versus Vader. That was a really hard-hitting, just brutes smacking each other for a solid 15 minutes. And he has come out on top. So it is now the responsibility of the WWF to make Sycho Sid look as menacing as possible. That is the point. If you're going to be a threat, you need to come out swinging. So during this match, you kind of see a little bit of that in terms of like how Sycho Sid like overpowers Owen, and Owen has to kind of get creative, being kind of one, the smaller opponent, and two, being the more technical of the two. Doesn't really like get out of the blocks until Sycho Sid makes a mistake, and gets distracted by the Bulldog, who makes his way down the aisle at some point during the match, which allows Owen Hart to chop block him from behind, which thus sets up Owen Hart kind of attacking his legs for the next couple minutes of the match.
Right.
And that's kind of an intelligent way to kind of like work around, like, how do we get Owen like to also look good during this?
Right.
And is
Yeah,
that
I
like
was gonna say that.
he has to be the smarter wrestler, the more technical wrestler. Whereas
Yeah.
Psycho Sid is and should rely on his just brute strength.
Right.
Because that's what's going to get him out of a lot, and that's his bread and butter, and that's what wins him the matches.
Yeah, I kind of love how they do that. Where they like, because Owen Hart is a very formidable wrestler, and they don't want him to look weaker. And I know we've probably talked about this, but they don't want him to appear weak, but they also want Psycho Sid to appear strong. So they like put him up against somebody who's like a pretty high caliber, but then like make it like
Right.
by taking him down a peg. And I think it was JR that was like, or no, maybe not JR, probably Jerry the King was like, you know what they say, if like a man is like too tall for you, like gotta bring him down to your level, or like said something like that, and then like was literally taking him out the knees to like bring him down. Which also I really want to quickly mention that Owen Hart got a haircut, and
It
the
was
glow up,
so
surreal.
real.
He looks incredible.
Literally, he comes like out for like the first, he comes around the curtain, and Kelsey's like, did he get? I was like, yes, he did. She was like, it's like a new person, a different person,
so different. And it's funny because I was like, wow, I don't even remember what he looked like before. And then like on cue, like somebody in the crowd was like holding up an older Owen Hart shirt, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to see that again.
And it feels like a kind of like a hard cut, because I was talking about this like yesterday, whereas like when we were talking about like decades, like all of the 80s kind of looks like the same font. You know what I mean? But the first half of the 90s is very much the 80s. And then there's a weird like break. And then the second half of the 90s is like very much Nirvana. So like it
so true.
Like he like cutting the mullet was kind of like the 80s is done. Like
it was very Mulan. Very Mulan, like shing, like we're moving on now, or like Prince Zuko, like shing, like
his reflection shows who he is inside. And
like swear though, but like it's so true. And I also feel like it's so serendipitous too, like because now his brother is, which we'll get to, returning, but he has the longer hair, and like it's almost like too, it's like that separation. So it's like I gotta, like, I'm different, and he is.
It's like when Ashley Simpson dyed her hair black.
Yeah, 100%. Like he's got to have that edge, that difference, like something that is more distinguishing.
Right. Right.
I love it though.
And that's kind of like always the unfortunate, like the thing with Owen Hart is that because Bret Hart is so successful, like he almost always gets mentioned in the same breath, and like he's so. And like this is like a widespread opinion. He's like arguably like the most underrated wrestler that has ever come through the WWF. The man just did not get his didn't have enough time because of the way that he tragically died, and didn't have the same kind of like
I didn't know that he died tragically.
Yes, I told you about this. I did.
Wait, you did. Oh my God. It was so traumatic. I just blocked it out.
Yeah, right. It was traumatic for them all. But he runs out of time, and he was such a stand-up dude. He, as the WWF kind of becomes more adult oriented, he chose to not participate in some of those things. Because I
get that.
He was very adamant that he wanted his children to be able to watch what he did. And so because the whole company was kind of going in a more edgier, more adult direction, he ended up kind of taking more of a back seat. Wow. Which is your decisions at the end of the day. He still collected a paycheck, and he did, I'm sure he got to sleep well at night knowing he stuck by his principles on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the fact that one, his legacy is so clear and lives on, and that he is like you said, he is still talked about as, unfortunately it's under the underrated category, but the fact that people do appreciate and respect what an amazing wrestler he was.
Right.
It's crazy.
And it goes to show, and a lot of the even when they talk about him generally, a lot of it's they describe the person he was. Yes, he was a phenomenal wrestler, but through and through he was a good person. And that's, you lose some of that sometimes in wrestling, whereas people get caught up in the fame and I'm the one that sells all the tickets, and I now, so I can have hotel rooms full of women and I can go out and party till 6 a.m. and blah blah blah. Like he just never fell into that like trap. Like he was never about it. So he was just such a stand-up dude that like it just kind of you had to respect it. You know what I mean? Like there was no budging that guy. He is who he says he is, and you have no choice but to just be like, yeah, all right, that tracks.
Wow. So, flowers to Owen Hart. We love you.
Amen. We get kind of into the match. Owen's working on the leg. Sycho Sid kind of is using his muscle to like get out of certain like submissions. He catches Owen Hart in a choke slam, where we get a peek of a sign in the crowd, which was absolutely heinous. And
heinous
because it just says hump his face. How did you get that in the building? How?
There were
no laws.
I don't know. None lawless. And it's like it's crazy because now you can't get in anywhere unless your bag is only 4 inches wide and translucent. Like you can like before it was backpacks, signs that said hump his face, and like just crazy. It was unhinged, it was feral. I kind of miss it.
Right.
But even there was another sign later on that said Sunny makes me vomit.
Right.
And I was like
right. And like this was a good time for like signs. I wish that was more of a thing like today.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, granted, like I don't want to be the person behind the dude with the sign, but like they're just so funny.
They're
like,
so good. I appreciate it. Like I understand the caveat or the catch-22 where it's like you don't want to be the person like holding the sign that blocks the people behind you, but at the same time, like if you just hold it up for like 15 seconds, it was like our first lands.
Like memes, like it really was.
Amen. Like ones at baseball games, like you would see on TV, and it was before they have like the lag now, so you would just see it, and it would be like I be like I suck number none.
Dick, yeah. Oh my god, so funny.
I suck number 59's dick in high school.
You're like, congrats, Smith.
Like, good job, babe. Oh my god. Yeah, they really were. The wordplay, the imagery, and it was just you printer paper and a glue stick on a neon poster board you got from CVS or Walgreens.
100%. They brought that science fair energy to these signs.
Swear to God, they really did.
Sycho Sid performs the choke slam and sets Owen up for the power bomb, and that is when the British Bulldog comes in and clotheslines Sycho Sid in front of the referee, giving him the disqualification victory. And then, of course, the two, being the tag team champions, start wailing on Sycho Sid, which brings out Shawn Michaels, who comes out to the rescue, and kind of starts popping off on the British Bulldog. They clear the ring. There's kind of a little bit of like tension between the two. As we know, it's building.
Building.
They do shake hands, but it is, you can like look at Sycho Sid's like face and read his lips, and he's saying like, thank you,
but
I don't need your help. I didn't ask for your help. I don't know why you felt like you had to come out here and save me. I don't need to be saved by anybody. Like you can just kind of tell like that is the vibe. Which is kind of like, you can kind of see them starting like week over week, just kind of like their friendship is just kind of like, yes, they're coming out and like supporting each other, but there is this like tension that's like, we will have to fight, and I'm coming for your most prized possession. And there is no way to kind of like nicely do that.
Right. It's very much giving the energy of like a family member that you like have to be cordial with at holidays, but like you really like low down, like there's like beef there, like who's like a cousin or like a sibling where it's like, I want to host Thanksgiving when our parents don't do it anymore, but you think you're gonna host Thanksgiving and that's not happening. And like you're getting closer to that age, but it's just like good to see you, Kathy, whatever.
Like a fight's coming, but like it's just now is not the right time.
Biding their time. Yes, 100%.
That's a crock pot for sure.
Slow cooker. Cooker.
So they kind of like disperse, and then we get a recap from the Buried Alive match from the night before, which I cannot say enough phenomenal things about that match.
It was so good, and it was amazing because Xavier brought this to my attention because I think I said this the last time we watched a pay-per-view, but I was like, it's so funny the episode after they just show like screen
snapshots,
caps of the like little snapshots, and I was like, that's so weird that they do that. And Xavier blew my mind. He's like, oh well, they do that, they don't want to show clips from the pay-per-view because they want people to pay for it, like actually watch it, so they just give like a little recap with just like images. And I was like, oh my god, that is so, like, it's obvious now to me why they would do that, but that I was like, wow, that's like genius. I love that because it gives you that intrigue, but that you're like, ooh, maybe I will buy it, or like, I kind of do want to see like, you know, the Undertaker out of the blue get hit with a shovel by an executioner who we did not see coming at all, like or the lightning strike, the tombstone or the headstone, which also we were discussing, like, who do we think has the headstone? Do we think it's in a museum? Do we think it's in like the?
I think like Triple H as part of his like role or whatever, and that show, the like Hidden Treasures, blah blah blah.
Yes,
is spending a lot of time like archiving a lot of that stuff. I think with the intention of doing like a museum, like a destination museum.
Because I think like there is a small one, like, but it's in an arena, like it's like adjacent to.
They kind of they pull it out during like WrestleMania like weekend, like they'll build up like a pop-up one.
Okay, yeah.
Where they have all these like artifacts and things, and fans can go like look at it and blah blah blah. And they do it like, you know, for other events and stuff. But I think I think large scale, like the goal is to have like a place where everything kind of lives.
I would love that, to
people
be honest.
can just like, you know, it becomes its own like attraction, you know?
Which would be sick, because I always am amazed by that kind of stuff. And I think we've talked about this already, but like the detail, the fact that they legitimately got a headstone and carved these like beautiful portraits into it and like have the date and everything, and it was like actually then used as a prop in the match, like is a crazy dedication to detail and aesthetic that like should be honored and like put in a museum somewhere. It should be in a museum like Indiana Jones, but like I just
it's so easy to
cool.
overlook those things, because like if you really like think about it, like the headstone, we saw it a grand total of like 4 times. Like it was when it showed up on like the stage in Raw, and then like during the like pay-per-view match. So it's easy to just kind of like be like, oh, like that was a nice thing, and then you forget about it and you never acknowledge it. But there's so many like minute details that go into making such a like spectacle happen. That like if you can take a moment and like appreciate it, like you should, because that's a lot of work to entertain people. Like it's not easy, as you know, it's one, you're never going to entertain everybody. That's just the rule. But like when you have thousands of people, like, and they paid their good hard money to like come be entertained for a night and forget their lives, like you got to do it. Like
you got to do it. And to me, it's always worth it. Like to invest that type of energy and money and whatever time into doing those things, like you get remembered for, like, I just feel like it's always worth the investment, whatever the investment ends up being.
It's always, it's like, that's like you get what you put into. You get out what you put in. Like,
yes, you get out what you put in, 100%. So true.
Like, you know, if you're gonna like half-ass it and like not make it look good, people are gonna see right through it. Like they're gonna they're gonna see right through it. They're gonna get bored, and then they're gonna get annoyed that you tried to pass off something that wasn't worth their money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, so true. It's like you said, especially when people are paying money, because if at the end of the day, like a pay-per-view it really is like a luxury buy.
Yes,
like people don't need to buy a pay-per-view to continue living. I know some people will argue, but like you know, it's a luxury item, and like people spending money on it is meaningful. So like you should invest the energy into making it something worth their while.
Right. I agree.
Or worth their while.
Right.
Worth their while, whatever.
And then during that entire recap, Kelsey just goes, not "Oh Fortuna," just playing like aggressively over the entire recap. It's
the whole song.
Like it's like front to end, like they gave us the whole thing while they like went over this. It was just like so aggressive, because there's, you know, that song's just so epic. Like there's no
it's for the drama. Oh yeah, for the drama. Anything for the drama. Again, if you're gonna invest, you might as well invest, and it better be for the drama, at least for me.
Amen.
But yeah, top to bottom, Oh Fortuna, and I know this because I played it in band.
Claps. All right, so the following match, we had the Smoking Guns versus the Godwins with Hillbilly Jim. The Smoking Guns are coming off of a tag team championship rematch loss because they have different priorities. The two Smoking Guns, and it is becoming more and more obvious that they are nowhere near the same page. The
No.
Godwins once again have come out with their animals, with some little
This
piggies.
time's, yeah, 2 little piglets who are screaming.
Absolutely losing their mind.
Wailing.
Why? Because what business do these people have just bringing out farm
I
animals?
know it. And then they like, it was so funny because they took the piglets on like a tour. Like they
Oh,
took them to
they
like the
did a
international
whole
announcers
lap.
table and shook their hands, which I was gonna say this, like I really have such a fondness in my heart for the Godwin brothers. I don't know what it is. The farm animals is kind of weird because I'm just like, these poor animals, because then they just kind of like, when they get into the ring, they just kind of like pass them to some guy and the guy like takes them out, and it's just kind
Right.
of weird. But they like went to every table and like shook everyone's hands, like every announcer, and like showed them the pig, like was showing the pigs to like kids in the audience. I
Yeah.
was like, what is this?
They
Like
were loving it. They were living their life.
loving it. It was like a what do you call it? An assembly. Like when the
Oh.
farmer comes to like like your middle school and like shows
Oh,
you
for
like little
sure.
farm animals. It was like, yeah, here.
They were stoked.
Stoked.
So while they were doing that, they go over to like the main announce table, and Jerry the King starts freaking out that one of the pigs like pissed on him. And JR says the most brutal thing I've ever heard.
Wait, I totally missed this.
He turns around, so he's like, oh, like the pig like peed on me. He's like, you've been wearing the same jacket for 20 years, so it was time to upgrade anyway. So like, and I was like, Jim Ross, you are that bitch recently.
Regina George couldn't even.
He is the meanest girl.
Meanest girl.
He is the meanest girl.
He's the meanest girl in the lunchroom. Oh my God, that is vile. I did not even hear that.
Dude, it was so funny because it was just so like matter of fact. He's just like, you've been wearing the same jacket for 20 years. It's time. So I'm glad the pig pissed on you. Like,
damn.
It ends up being like a very back and forth match. There's speculation that whoever wins the match becomes the #1 contender. None of this is like confirmed, so I didn't really put too much stock into that. But we do have another miscommunication from the Smoking Guns. Billy is on the outside trying to get into the ring to aid Bart, which is, by the way, the name Bart.
Oh, please.
We can do better.
Put it to rest.
Like, is that short for something? Like Bartholomew?
I was just
I was about to like move on, and I just couldn't. Like
I was thinking, I was literally like, is it Bartlett? Like, what is it short?
Bartlett. Here's my
Bartholomew?
son Bartlett. That's what I thought. Like,
yeah, I don't know. We don't need it anymore. Just we don't let it rest.
So anyway, so Billy's trying to get.
We don't need Billy either, to be honest. But anyway,
Billy is trying to get into the ring, and Bart gets thrown into the ropes, smacking Billy hard on the floor, and that allows the Godwins to give the slop drop and get the pin, thus giving the Smoking Guns yet another loss. Which I'm telling you, we are barreling towards those two feuding. Like, there is.
I kind of can't wait. I thought it was gonna pop off right then and there because they started fighting in the ring. Billy was like, "Why would you do that?" And it's like, "Why were you on the apron in my way? Like, I could have bounced off the ropes. Like, this is your fault." Like, the constant going for the high five and missing is crazy, especially when it's a tag team match and the high five is kind of important.
Right. It's
like kind of the point of the match.
It's kind of the one thing you need to do. Like,
yeah, like, oh God.
So that's coming. That little Splitsville is on its way. And next it cuts to a little segment. Mr. Perfect's like backstage, I guess, getting ready for his match, warming up or whatever. And Triple H just comes by and pushes one of the like sound equipment like crates just like into his leg, and then that's kind of how they like leave it. It's just like Triple H pushes Mr. Perfect laid out, moving on to the next thing, right?
Yeah, it was odd, and it was like one of those things that if you blinked you would have missed it.
And
like, I felt like
I did. Like,
yeah,
I was literally writing down like a note from the previous segment, and I missed the whole thing, and Kelsey had to like backtrack it and like.
And the only reason he knew is because I went, ooh.
Yeah, no, I looked up. I was just like, what?
Because it was, and I feel like because we'll get to it, but it becomes a very crucial plot point in 20 minutes, and I feel like they just blew right through it, and I was like, wait, did that really just happen? I'm so confused, and I thought it was just like again, we'll get to it, but I thought it was just like pre-match, like whatever. But it ends up being
a lot more.
Yeah.
But before we get there, we have the return of Bret the Hitman Hart. So that has been a long time coming.
Long time
coming. So he hasn't been seen really since WrestleMania. There was like a interview kind of segment like a couple
on like a
months
cruise
ago.
ship. Yeah.
Right. But in the flesh hasn't happened. During this time, we know Stone Cold has been calling out this man week over week, just trying to get this man to show face. So JR is in the ring and is kind of just like, all right, like, so what is next for the Hitman? Is he retiring? Is he coming back? Is he gonna work at the office in the WWF? Like, what's the deal? Bret Hart then explains that he was in talks with the rival promotion WCW, and they made him offers, which they want to do. That's their thing. They had made quite the reputation of going in, offering WWF wrestlers a lot of money and taking them. So as Bret Hart is explaining this, you see they like cut to Vince McMahon, and you can kind of see on his face, like, he's like, oh my God, like, why did I give this man a microphone? Like, what is he about to say? Like, is he about to bury my entire company, like, on the mic live? And you can see just, it's just kind of like, whoa, like something, he's like visibly getting like nervous and a little upset. Like, he's like,
yeah, like the tea kettle is starting to steam.
Right.
For sure.
And then Bret Hart kind of gives us the swerve and is like, I'm going to be with WWF forever. Basically, he chalks it up to his fans and where they have come and supported him, and that he would like to continue to like repay them and, you know, build that relationship here where they are.
Yeah. And his man literally was like, whew, oh my God. Like, literally fell into his chair. Yeah.
So that was that. So we get, you know, Bret Hart is here. Obviously, I mean, he's on a WWF television show making the announcement, so we kind of, you know, assumed that's what was happening.
Right.
But the swerve that kind of like got me is you get him saying that when he left after WrestleMania, it really looked like he was just big pissed about what went down.
Right.
So the fact that he then comes back and goes and tells the audience, like, Shawn Michaels beat me clean. Like, there is no like excuses. Like, that is what happened. Which was kind of like a very much a like a 180 as far as how he left, because it looked not like that.
Right.
But he does go on to say, like, there's something about you, Shawn, that just bugs me. That just doesn't sit right with me.
And he said something at first where it was like, oh, you're not my enemy, but you are my opponent.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really like a great distinction. I loved that a lot. Right. But then he went on to say, but there is something about you that just really bugs me. And everyone was like, the fact the crowd turned on Shawn Michaels so quick.
Bret
like
Hart?
It was no, like the because he goes like, there's something about Shawn Michaels I just don't like, and everyone was like, yeah, woo. And I was like, all of you, when he came out to defend Psycho Sid 30 minutes ago,
losing
your beans, as was I.
Right.
Where is that energy?
Right.
So quick, the peanut gallery.
And that's like very much so real. Like, they just have very differing personalities, very different views about how wrestling should and can be done. And at this point in time, Shawn Michaels is essentially being primed to just take over Bret's spot. Bret was the champion for a long time. He was the guy for the WWF for a long time. So, of course, Bret's going to take some umbrage to the fact that there's somebody like, he still feels like he's in his prime. He can still wrestle at the same caliber he's always wrestled at. So to feel like somebody, like, you're getting replaced with someone younger, faster, a little more brash, is gonna rub you the wrong way. So there is like a real animosity on like a personal level that, like, one, they have their personalities clash just based on the way that they are. and two, like the positions that they're in. Like it's probably not easy to be Shawn Michaels and being set up to be the person that's going to be like taking over someone's spot. That's not a comfortable thing to
No.
be in. But there's this like widely known like expression in the WWF or like, you know, wrestling generally, like if you're not in it to be the world champion, why are you here?
Right.
Like if that's not your goal, like then why are you even bothering? Like does everybody make it there? No. But if that's not like what you're working towards, then what's the point?
I mean, that must be, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that must be like the most insane like ping-ponging of emotions, because again, like you said, it's like it's hard to be like you're the one being primed to take over somebody's spot, but it's also like your dream and what you've been working for forever. And it's like maybe that person is someone you really respect and you don't really want it to go down this way, but like what else are you gonna do? Like that must be an insane
and this whirlwind. Is the next like year and a half between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. It's just gonna get worse. I'm just gonna let you know, like they do not like each other, and like it slowly becomes a more and more personal thing.
Because I was gonna say, do they not like each other in real life?
Yeah. So no, well, I think in real life, I think they like they're not like friends. You know what I mean? Like they're not. They're just not people that like personally like vibe with each other. You know what I mean? Like I don't think they're like at this point in time. I don't think they're like actively feuding like outside of the world of wrestling. But they're certainly not like they're not running in the same circles. Let's just put it that. We kind of then back onto like the promo. We start getting like camera cuts to the backstage area where most of the roster is watching this announcement because Bret Hart was the guy. So they want to know, is the guy coming back? Because chances are if someone that was that high up on the card is returning, guess what happens to everybody else? So there's a lot of people watching backstage that want to know, like, what does this mean for me then?
Yeah, they're getting the tea.
So we find out that he does accept the match against Stone Cold Steve Austin, which should be taking place at Survivor Series, which is the following pay-per-view that we're working towards. So that happens, and then he goes on like another very long-winded story. I will say, as much as I love Bret Hart, he is not the most eloquent of speakers. He has a tendency to kind of find the long way to the point.
Yeah, he's very, very long-winded. And there's definitely something about him, like he has that appeal.
Right.
But he is very long-winded, and he told this like very harrowing story, but it was like very long and it was very like back and forth, and it ended with like, and the little boy that died was my nephew, and I like promised him on his deathbed that I would come back to wrestling. And it was like, whoa, I did not, that's not where I thought this story was going. And then he was like, I'm happy to be back, bye. And we were like, wait, what?
Okay, we'll see you later. Yeah.
It was insane. But also I want to mention, this was crazy. They did a cutscene to the back and we got our first glimpse of The Rock.
Which I'm pretty sure was a mistake.
Was like, a mistake?
He hasn't debuted yet.
Which is because I was like, you like freaked out. And I was like, what? And then I looked and you were like, it's The Rock. And I was like, oh my God, that is The Rock. And he was like standing like right next to like TL Hopper and like what's his face?
Yeah.
Like
so, yeah,
the most random assortment of people.
Like a little like oopsie, because he hasn't debuted as far as we know. I'm like 95% sure he debuts on this pay-per-view coming up.
Well, and it is interesting because he was in the first cut, and then when they went back later, he was not in it. They like cut him out of it, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. But he was that was definitely him.
I can spot Dwayne Johnson.
Everyone can.
I've been watching that man since I was 2 years old. I can spot Dwayne Johnson.
Right.
But like, I was like, but yeah, he hasn't made his debut yet, so I think we caught a little oopsie by the cameraman on that one. So now let's get to the main event.
Oh my God!
How did we get to this main event? So the last couple of weeks, we have had Mr. Perfect coming down from wherever he comes down from to interrupt all of Triple H's matches with the intention of stealing all of these women that Triple H brings to ringside. They don't have names, they don't have stories, they are just plot points. So
sad.
So for the past like month, Mr. Perfect has been coming down to the ring, plucking these women with just a sweet nothing in their ear, and then they go. So this has been happening over and over again, and eventually, you know, understandably, Triple H is like, "What's going on? I don't like hello," to the point where he handcuffed the last woman to the ring. So
never forget.
Which didn't matter because she got anyway. So like it.
Yeah, like Mr. Perfect with like a basic magician was like shing shing key, and then paid off the guy who gave him the key.
Right. Anyway, so Triple H makes his entrance, and then Mr. Perfect's music hits, and he comes out with an entourage. So not only is it Mr. Perfect limping his way down to the ring, he is joined by Mark Miro with Sable and the WWF president Gorilla Monsoon, and they're making their way down to the ring,
making their way downtown, walking fast,
faces pass and they're homebound. So like they're making their way down, and everyone's confused. Like the
weird
commentators are like, "What's going on?" So Jim Ross climbs into the ring, not without giving his 2 cents to Vince McMahon first, being like, "I got this, Vince. Don't worry, I'm the real professional." And then he's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Okay, the real professional."
I even forgot JR was there because it was so chaotic. I was just like,
"Oh well,"
but yeah. I forgot about that. Where he's like, "Sit down, Vince. I'll go."
Right. So basically, it is revealed to us that the doctors have told Gorilla Monsoon that Mr. Perfect cannot or should not wrestle this evening.
Which I was pissed, big pissed, because I was like, I've been waiting to see Mr. Perfect wrestle forever, and now he gets hit by a little sound box and he's out of commish. Like I was so mad. I was like, oh come on, but
done.
Harry, keep going.
Yeah. So Mr. Perfect starts, going in on Triple H, being like, "Oh, you think you did something? Like you come in and like attack me from behind, and like now they're telling me like I can't wrestle like you all like big man, blah blah blah." And he goes, "What I've done is I have asked Mark Miro, the stand-up guy that I have helped win the Intercontinental Championship." Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like the manager that like likes to take credit for like he's like Michael Scott. So yeah, like he just takes credit for everything, even though it's like he had very little to nothing to do with it. Says that that Mark Miro wants to take his place. Triple H is having none of it. He's like, "I'm not contractually obligated to fight Mark Miro, so no." And basically Triple H then like thinks about it. He's like, "The only way I'm gonna do it is if he puts on the Intercontinental Championship." And immediately Mr. Perfect is like, "He'll do it. He'll definitely do it. Like, what kind of champion are you if you won't like defend?" Like, so
a mess.
Immediately jumped in and was like, like, "He'll definitely do it. And then Gorilla Monsoon steps in and is like, "You don't make matches.
Like, chill. You can't sanction a match unless I say so." And so Mr. Perfect's like, "Okay, then sanction the match."
Right.
Let's go.
So Gorilla turns some like Mark Miro's like, if he's willing to put up the title and he's willing to accept, like, let's do it. And then they're like, "Let's get it on." So suddenly we have an Intercontinental Championship match in the main event.
Which is ridiculous because they had a tournament the last time they wanted to put the title on the line where they had to like fight. It was like a bracket. You had to be the contender. It was a whole thing.
It was a whole thing.
And now they're like, "Yeah, let's just do it." Like, I was literally like, what is happening right now? This is such a mistake. I was like, I'm so confused. And I was like, if Triple H, after all these L's he's taken over the last month and beyond, suddenly whips out the moves during this match and wins I'm gonna lose my mind.
So
spoiler alert, I lost my mind.
It's so athletic and like
great
Triple
match.
H is coming out hot. Like Triple H, it has counters. He's like looks real good. He's but just like a different wrestler than we have been seeing for the last whatever. We have like this little moment outside of the ring where Mark Miro is about to like dive onto Triple H and he pulls Sable in front of him. and which such a coward move. And
Such a
Sable,
coward.
breaks free and slaps the taste out of his mouth. Just like
Mm.
absolutely decks him.
Decks him. I feel
So
like she heard her ears ringing because like when I said like she needed to get in there, she was in there
she
this
was
match.
in there
She
this
got
one.
involved in this match.
Yeah.
I was so here for it.
So she slaps him. Triple H gets like back in the ring. Mark Miro does the sickest moonsault ever. Once again, he flips on like while standing on the top rope and then does the moonsault, and it's
crazy.
just beautiful. It's
beautiful.
It's so
He's
well
amazing.
done. So that happens. We think he's gonna pull out the victory. He gets a 2 count. Triple H then proceeds to knock Mark Miro into the referee in the corner, which knocks the referee down. Triple H then runs out and grabs a chair, brings it into the ring, and then Sable, MVP Sable, jumps in and like tries to like grab it from Triple H and does successfully.
Amazing. Well, she
So,
catches it on like the backswing, and I was like, yes.
Yeah. And then Mr. Perfect jumps into the ring, grabs it from Sable, and we think like, oh, like he's gonna like hit. It looks like he's gonna hit Triple H. But as this is happening, Mark Miro is getting to his feet, and when Mr. Perfect goes to like swing at Triple H, he like swings wide and hits Mark Miro. He turns on Mark Miro, and Sable loses her mind. She
should,
screaming at like the top of her lungs. So like the referee starts getting up, and she runs to the other side of the ring and like gets in his face. She's like, "She hit him, or he hit him with a chair."
And she's in a full-length sequin gown, jumping off the ring, running around the side, like, trying to get the rep. I was like,
practically in tears, and
screaming.
Triple H drags Mark Miro's like lifeless body up into the pedigree and wins the title. He wins the Intercontinental Championship, and Mr. Perfect is the one that goes and gives it to him. Apparently, they've been in cahoots this whole
time. It's snakes in the grass because the bitch ain't cut. I was so pissed. I was like, this was I literally I can't. I am. My heart is pounding just thinking about it again, because the long con of it all. And then I was like, and that's why the women went with him so easily. It was a part of this whole conspiracy. I was losing my mind. I was like, all of these trust issues that I thought I've gotten over, I've are just being unraveled thread by thread by WWE. What in the fresh hell is this?
Dude,
what is this? That Mr. Perfect, who I was like, oh, he's not gonna wrestle, it's so weird. Like, I thought that the sound booth thing was just because he, like, in his personal life wasn't ready to wrestle again, and they're just looking for an excuse, and this is gonna be another put down on Triple H. Are you kidding? And why to Mark Miro? Like, what is that?
I don't.
We can't even do. I have so many questions. I'm so shocked.
We'll find out. We will. This is
like, am I missing the signs? Like, is my intuition off? Because like, I didn't see Paul Bearer coming at all. Not at all. And this, I was
no one saw Paul Bearer coming. That was a doozy for
crazy.
Everybody, because like that was 6 years of being on the Undertaker's coattails before anything.
I'll never get over that.
This came out of left field, because like up until this point, like they were like Mr. Perfect and Triple H were like at each other's throats. Like they were playing that part well.
I just don't. They better explain themselves.
Well,
they better.
I'm sure they'll try.
Like because I thought, I was so shocked. I thought he did it by accident. I thought it was one of those like whoopsies, but he's Mr. Perfect. He doesn't do accidents.
No,
I'm livid, and I'm just beyond. And I have no more words.
And that's where they left us.
That's where they left it.
With a new Intercontinental Champion, Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Out of the blue, after which like
puts an end to kind of his long kind of punishment after the incident in Madison Square Garden. So
I just can't believe they gave away the title like that. They're like, yeah, put it on. Gorilla Monsoon is like, well, if you both say yeah, sure, let's just do it. What there was like a whole there's using whatever.
I know.
I'm so beyond done.
But like that's when it's done well, you get that reaction.
I wish you guys could have seen it because I was so unprepared for this. I was literally freaking. I
screaming,
was
just like no,
sweating. My heart was pounding. I was checking my pulse to see if I was still alive. Like
dude, I know. They really do be twisting and turning on you.
Mr. Perfect, that, and I still haven't seen him wrestle. I'm so mad. All of that for what? For what? Stealing women and not wrestling and making me pissed off.
Just stay tuned, really.
Oh.
All right, guys. So that was this week's episode of the New to Wrestling podcast. As always, we appreciate you guys coming out and listening to us wherever you find us. And we will be back next week with another edition. Thank you.
Yeah, see you then. Bye.